Hey everyone, what's up? What's up? Thank you for joining us in the Live Fearlessly vlog. Today we are talking with Dana, and she's a mama of six. She is all about helping others and never settling for any areas in our life. So, Dana, I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about you and, well, where are you located, first off?
I live in a little town in Washington State called Maple Valley.
So beautiful. I follow on her Facebook and she's always posting like beautiful water flowage and all the beautiful scenery as you can see behind her. So super beautiful. Are you originally from Washington?
So I am. I was born and raised. I was homegrown. I call myself a true Washingtonian because when it rains, I like embrace the scent of rain and everything around rain doesn't bother me. So, yes, I did live a few different places, but it's always called me home here in Washington.
I love it. I love it you say homegrown. That's so fun.
Yeah.
Very cool. So we're going to talk about fear and how fear held you back from living your life to live fully at one point in your life. But before we dive in, I would love for you to share what's something interesting about you or just fun fact about Dana that maybe we wouldn't know just looking at your social media, right? Like what's a fun fact about you that you would love to share?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I I live out loud on Facebook. I know that sometimes people use Facebook as a who I want you to think I am, and I
Yeah.
like to use Facebook as this is who I am. Like you're not going to meet me off Facebook and be like, "Oh, like you're not anything like what I expected." So I
Yeah.
what is a fun fact about me that you might not know? Gosh, that's a great question. I think it's all on Facebook. I love to cook. That's not a fun fact. I have a crazy obsession with cats. I love cats.
What's your
Abs-
favorite food?
Mexican, Mexican food. I love Mexican food. I can drink salsa and chase it with a chip.
Taste it with a chip.
If I've got my favorite restaurant, I'm addicted to it. Yeah, I love Mexican food. I love salsa, chips and salsa. I love anything that's got a great flavor. Food is an adventure, so I love all kinds of food because it's just textures, tastes, flavors, all of it. I just think food's an adventure.
That's cool. I love it. You mentioned that you lived a couple of different places. Did you live in other states or countries or?
I did. So when I graduated from high school, I wound up going to Maui and I went to Maui Community College and
Oh, wow.
I lived there for 2 years. But in the 2 years that I lived there, it really was an incredible opportunity to just see a completely different culture, diversity. Um, Being on an island, I was young. And so I have to be very transparent and just be truthful and say beach volleyball called my name. So I would cut class all the time and go play beach volleyball instead. And I just had so much fun. The ships would come in and it was like beach volleyball. So I did mostly beach volleyball when I lived in Maui and just had a lot of fun. Met a lot of amazing people, still have a lot of great connections from living there. And then I moved to Georgia. Like, who lives in Georgia? Somebody does. It wasn't for me. I was landlocked, not around. I'm a water baby. And so
Yeah.
lived in Georgia for a couple years. And that was a great experience too. Again, I still have friendships and people that I'd met there. But I had had my first child while I was in Georgia. And I realized I wanted to raise a family how I had been raised with the mountains, the ocean, hiking, fishing, rivers, lakes. And so I made a decision to move back and basically raise my son.
Yeah. Life experiences. I'm all about that life. When I was 12, I knew I wanted 3 to 8 kids. I knew I wanted to teach them through life experiences more than more of a sit down, shut up kind of style of learning about life. And so I can totally get on the level of that. But Danny, you have 6 kids, right?
I do.
Yeah. And what are their age ranges currently?
My oldest is 28 and my youngest is 9.
Yeah. So, so that's awesome. So that's a great background on you, right? Like you're the adventurous one, you're the live out loud person and have that family, the family values of really wanting to be hands-on and do stuff with your kids too, which I super, super love. So let's dive in and talk about your story a little bit here. When I ask the question, right, like, tell me about a significant time in your life when fear held you back from living your life fully. Where does that go for you?
I think I was pretty fearless for a really long time. I love adventures. Didn't really ever really care, what someone thought about me per se. I cared, but
Yeah.
it wasn't that it would hold me back. My own personal style, being able to just be authentically who I was. And I was probably in my mid 20s, and I really wanted to get married. Like, I really wanted to get married and have children. And I was kind of thinking that maybe I was running out of time. I had my son. I was a single mom with him for 10 years, 9 years. And then I really wanted to get married. And so I wound up meeting somebody, and I believed that it was who I was supposed to marry. And that was a little bit of the beginning of the fear, because it was an abusive marriage. And of course, at the time, I didn't know I was going to be marrying into an abusive marriage.
Right.
That season for me was a lot of self-doubt, scared that people would find out I was in that relationship, what they would think of me, the image of who I was versus who I was becoming, feeling trapped, and losing my identity really in that season.
Right. Wow. So how old were you at that time?
I was 28, about to be 29.
Okay. Yeah. So so you're not currently in this relationship anymore?
No.
Okay. And you're remarried, right? You have a husband currently.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about, how that transitioned. So what was like the event, or what was the turning point that you realized like you had to get out of the situation, or tell us a little bit more about the storyline and like where it went from obviously figuring out that you were in an abusive relationship. How long did that last, I guess? How long were you feeling the trapped and the fear in that?
Within the first month of being married.
Wow. Okay.
So I would say the behaviors reared its ugly head of belittling, condemnation, almost like it's so interesting to even look back on it, but it's subtle. It's like, you ever heard the analogy about putting a frog in water and then turning up the heat?
Yeah.
You don't see it all at first, but almost like mental warfare of breaking somebody down mentally, and the person enjoying watching them take a chink out of who you are when it's all about control. Right. So a lot of emotional abuse, there was physical abuse, and just thinking it's going to get better. And then what can I do? What can I do? And still trying to be authentic to who I was, because I love people and, background in serving and not serving like in waitress, but serving people, being in the fitness world, being a personal trainer, going out and helping people hit goals and achieve goals and cheering people on and just supporting people where they were at, but being in a spot where I was losing my identity of how did I wind up not seeing it? How did I miss the mark? And then watching because I got pregnant, and then wanting, believing that, things would work out, new marriage, relationship. So I just did all the things that I knew or thought I knew to do to get support and help and figure it out. But what it really boiled down to is I was miserable. It wasn't even a matter of being happy, because I think people can have bad situations and still choose to find joy in other things. So that's what I did. I just transferred everything to working on the things I could control, being around people that were uplifting and positive, focusing more on fitness. But anytime there was any interaction or communication. It was belittling, argumentative, couldn't say anything right, couldn't do anything right. And then it started transferring into my children and seeing that abuse go into my kids. And it's funny when you're I would say you are trapped for a little bit in thinking that it's only going to happen to you.
Right.
But the truth is, it transcends into your children. And only behind closed doors.
Sure.
If anybody else was around, never reared its ugly head or never behaved that way in front of other people. So the fear of what other people would think, how did I let myself fall into this, situation where I'm in an abusive marriage and I don't like who this person is. I don't like the way this person treats me, believing that, when you get married, you stay married, you work it out, you figure it out, doing all the things that I knew to do. So the turning point was actually after I had my third child with him. So at this time now I got 4 kiddos.
Okay.
And it was interesting because I wasn't planning to have another baby. But God had other plans for me. So when I found out I was pregnant, I was actually in shock. Like I couldn't believe I was pregnant. And putting on, the white picket fence, family looks so great, pretending like life is wonderful, because I didn't really know how to talk about what was happening.
Right.
And so when you say that turning point, I'm a Christian. I faithfully was praying and asking God just to provide a way and show me what exactly I needed to do. So when my daughter was born, she was a couple months old, and I got a really bad pink eye. And so I needed to go to the doctor. And that was it. That was when it kind of came to a head. So he believed that by my faith, I should have been able to heal myself. So I was ridiculed and, beat up for not having the faith to cure my own pink eye.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I called my mom and I asked my mom to come over and help me because I couldn't see to drive. And I knew I needed help. So my mom came over and she was going to watch the kids. No, she was going to drive me. So we were loading the kids into the car. And at this time, he had come home. And he was enraged. He was angry because he had to leave what he was doing. It was inconveniencing him to have to come and watch his own children, which the whole time we were together, if I needed to do something, I had to find childcare. So he couldn't parent his own kids. It was always an inconvenience, very much the victim. He was always the victim. It was always because of me, he wasn't thriving in an area of life. I was always the one who was my fault.
Right. And at this point, your mom didn't know anything
not
about
the extent of it. Not the extent of it. She just knew that something wasn't right and that I wasn't happy. But when she saw him get out of the car and come towards me, she stepped in between.
Oh, I got goosebumps.
And I've got, kids in the car loaded up, ready to go. And he got in her face.
Wow.
And that was, I've never seen him lose it in front of other people. He always was really composed, and the image that somebody wants you to have when they really are lethal. So he got in her face, and that's when I was like, oh my gosh. And then I stepped up to both of them and I said, you need to walk away. And he was threatening to call the police on my mom, have her arrested for trespassing, like crazy, crazy things.
Yeah.
And he said, and he's thrown this out before, the threatening of divorce. I'm not worth being around. I'm just just you name a negative thing someone could say about you, he would say it about me. Anything and everything for battling the mind control. So he was, he threw out divorce, and he's done that before. And he said, that's it. You get what you want. You get what you want. And I want a divorce. And then he left. And I'm just sitting there still in like shock. At this point though, my mom told me to get in the car and lock the doors because she didn't want it to escalate where he got violent. So I had gotten in the car and locked the doors. And that's when he came to the window and yelled, "You get what you want, the divorce." And I sat there and I had almost like an audible voice, just this peace that came over me where I felt like I was being told, you're called to peace. You're called to live in peace with people. And I wasn't living a peaceful life.
Right.
I wasn't showing my children what it looked like to live in peace, other than me being a doormat. I was showing my children what it looked like to be abused. I was telling my children that it was okay and condoning being abused. And I didn't snap. It was more of a door closed, and I knew that I'd done everything I could do and that I was done. And I was not going to settle for less. And I called AAA Locks and I said, how fast can you be out here to change the locks on this house? I was scared. I'll be honest, I was scared because I didn't know quite how he was going to respond and what would happen. But I do believe that when people are a bully, that it's more about them, and they'll be a bully because they want to get what they want. Sure. And they'll try to use intimidation, shame, condemnation, anything for you to feel less and then to not want to be loud or fight back, just even verbally, like stand up for yourself.
Right.
So that was the shifting point where I stood firm. I didn't, and it wasn't easy. I did it very afraid. I was very scared of making that decision because at the time I had 4 children. I wasn't making an income where I was going to be able to survive financially on what I was making financially. It really was a 2-income household. And I do believe that men stay in abusive relationships because the financial piece of it. And if we take the finances out of the picture, would people stay in some of the relationships they're in? I don't believe they would. And so there's a lie attached to that financial piece that we think it's going to get better. And loyalty to that money, loyalty to thinking that extra money is going to be what you need to make ends meet should not lead you to poverty. Poverty in relationships, in your emotional well-being, in your physical well-being. I mean, people are broke in so many other areas than just finances. Actually, probably more so than finances, because we'll settle instead of fight.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And a couple things that I realized in your story too is you talking about how he would put on that persona, right? So that no one knew who he was, which really makes sense in what we talked about in the very beginning of how you show who you are on Facebook so very boldly and loudly, because you lived the life of everyone having to see a totally different side of your family. Then you had to hide it all and to feel safe and to feel like you could keep your family safe. So it makes a lot of sense that goes right back to the very first thing that we talked about, which is that you live very authentically to show people who you are instead of putting on a persona of who you think people want to see.
Right.
So that was really cool to hear that like come through and see like this is how this experience has really shaped you to be the leader that you are today and all the things that you do right now. So that was really cool. And then there was one other thing that I thought of too, which was so the advice that you were talking about before, you said really just starting to get around more positivity and the more good things to really keep you moving forward. Like what other advice would you maybe give the viewers that are feeling any kind of fear like what you're talking about? And also if you could actually label your fear, what would you say your fear was during this time? A fear of what?
My identity. I lost who I was. I did not know who I was. The Dana that I knew before wasn't a Dana who would ever have somebody treat them the way that this person treated me. and being really drawn into a trap, almost like I said, that frog in water, not seeing it, and then being ashamed of not, how did I not see it? How did I not catch that? How did I really seriously not see who he was? Did I want to believe my own lie of wanting to be married so badly that I ignored some signs and clues? Did I want what I wanted so badly of wanting a family that I, just didn't think it was going to be that important? If I did catch it or see something that maybe was a gut check, did I not listen to my own intuition? And then shame. And then, so to name my fear, I didn't know who I was anymore. Could I trust my own judgment? Was I seeing things clearly? Was I truly everything that he said I was? Because he was a mental health counselor. So I was constantly being diagnosed. I was constantly being told what my problem was, and that he was talking to all of his peers about me, and they've agreed that I am XYZ.
Wow.
So all the labels, all of who I was, that I was having emotional affairs, that I was truly a lesbian because I'd rather spend time with my girlfriends and go out and be with friends. Like, just that, really, it was almost like that mental warfare every single day. And I was drowning. Like, you literally imagine somebody who can't come up for air. That was my fear. I'd lost my identity. It took me 2 years after, of reestablishing who I am, and being able to process and work through all of the lies that I took in. And honestly, I've always been somebody, when somebody brings you something, look at it. Is it for me? Is it not for me? What part is relevant to me? What part isn't relevant to me? Is there any hint of truth in it? And so it was a lot where I lost my identity. So the fear for me is I didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
And then to be able to say anything, could I trust what I was saying? And then the condemnation and shame of being in that position, and who would ever want to be with me? Who would ever want to have a relationship with a 30, at the time then I was 37 years old. And I told myself, the self-talk, washed up, 37-year-old, I'm basically, who would want me? Who would want me? I've got baggage. I've got 4 kids. 37, I'm not gonna say half my life was gone, but I'm gonna say a lot of those years of my life, I couldn't get them back. So I was mourning as well, basically a 5-year relationship and 2 years of me getting my head back. Those are years I can't go back and have a do-over. There is no do-over. And so
it's good advice, people. There is no do-over.
There is no do-over. But at the same time, sometimes we're like, well, I don't want to miss out on something. So I've learned a couple things. One, for all of you out there who are maybe in a relationship and you're wondering if this is the right person, piss them off. Piss them off and intentionally make them mad and see how they respond. Do it. I did it to my husband. Want to see how he would respond. How would he react?
Yeah.
And the second is be authentically who you are. When my husband and I started dating, and that is a really fun story, but when we started dating, I basically said, you've got a backpack, but I've got a trunk of junk. Like, this is who I am, and this is what you're saying you want to date. And don't try to hide things from the person that you think you might want to be with. Let people authentically, transparently see who you are. Because if for any reason something about you doesn't resonate for them, then that's not your person. That's not who you're meant to be with. And never, ever compromise or change who you are to try to fit in to be with somebody else, ever. Because that's not the right person.
Love it. That's so good. Okay, so I'm also like someone that's very much like, oh, let's think about the future, and like, you coming this far now, how long have you been married to your husband currently?
Oh, it froze on me a second. Ask me that again.
How long have you been married to your husband now?
11 years.
Yay! Congratulations.
Thank you.
So obviously, you found a good relationship. You know what healthy relationships are and how you can keep moving forward in like, using the same tools and that kind of thing to get you through any kinds of fears. Because I always talk about how fear it's with us all the time. It's really just big little ones and how we choose to walk through life with them. So
Yeah.
where do you see yourself 5 years from today is something that I love to ask the viewer or the guests, because I love thinking future. Like, where do you see yourself going with your messages, with your business, with your family? What does that look like for you in 5 years?
That is such a great question. So in 2003, I was introduced to network marketing. And I will say that that was part of what was a godsend. Like it literally was a community of people who support, like women empowering women. It was incredible. And had I not had that, I really don't, I don't know who, I don't even know who I would have been. Like
Yeah.
that was part of what kept my mind from completely, probably having a nervous breakdown or going and making really, really poor choices about myself. So
That personal development, I feel like, is the main piece. Like network marketing gets such a bad rap, but it is very much about your personal development and what
yes,
you need and you self-discovering and like that kind of stuff. So I hear that a lot about, that industry is really saved a lot of women because we get the permission to be who we are and it's encouraged to be ourselves. So just wanted to say that, like, that makes a lot of sense that you want to, shine light on that because it's something that I do hear a lot about because of that personal growth and the development piece in the network marketing industry.
yeah, it's true. If you find the right community, then that's exactly what it is. The authentic, transparent, being able to be who you are. Because we all start from somewhere. It's do we know where we want to go? And a lot of times
Yeah.
they can give that framework with the personal development, personal growth to support the community. So where am I going to be in 5 years?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great question. In what area? Give me a specific area.
I don't know. So it's really whatever comes to mind for you. So some people are like, oh, I know I want to write a book. I know I want to have a talk show. I know I want to, travel the world. I want to do this specific thing for my business or give back to a certain level. Like any big dream that you're like, yeah, that's happening within 5 years. That's a big target for you.
So there are a few things. So I do believe very strongly in putting out what you envision in 5 years. Like you should know exactly where you want to be in 5 years and write it out like a vision statement for 5 years in the future of where you want to be. And put sound and the ages of your kids, if you have kids, or how old you're going to be, and be very detailed in what that's going to look like. And your vision statement sometimes can make you cry because it is who you're going to become.
Yes.
It was hard for me to learn to write vision statements because I'm very much a tangible person. If I can't see it, maybe it's not really going to happen for me. So in 5 years, my mom will be my neighbor. My mom will be in my neighborhood or very close on the river with me. And my children are going to be thriving. I'm going to have most of them out of the house, but I'll have two still at home at that season of my life, and still having a very interactive family where we're planning family vacations together. And my husband has his dream job, even more so where he's working as a software engineer for his dream company, and he's working from home. So so those are the things where I see in 5 years. For me, 5 years, I will still be doing what I'm doing, helping people. And from a business standpoint, life coach, just being a life coach and helping people have a voice. I feel very passionate about people having a voice, being empowered to have a voice, for standing up for who they are, what they believe in, and not coming underneath that umbrella of other people's dogma or shame or condemnation because they've got maybe programming that doesn't line up with your programming. And because their programming, it doesn't mean it's right or wrong, it's just their programming, but not to diminish or shrink because of who you are or the passion that you feel about a certain topic or the voice that you have, or that prompt that you feel that you want to share. And so to really come alongside with other, it's probably more women, to be bold, to be authentic, to never settle, and just to be that support as a life coach for transformation and change, because that's really what lights me up. It just sets my soul on fire to assist and be able to be just a small part in helping other people get their feet back on the ground, because I've been there where I needed that. I needed that system of support and encouragement and somebody to tell me, no, you're not crazy.
Right.
You're not crazy. It's okay. And a lot of people just need someone to tell them they're not crazy and it's okay, and to talk it out and just to get a really good next step to move forward. So that's what lights me up. I do it with my kids all the time too. And I don't know if this is appropriate to share, but I'm going to share it. So my husband married me knowing I had a trunk of stuff, which included, and this is my language, but a very mentally unstable ex. Like, so he took on a big package, and that's a lot coming into a situation with 4 kids. I called myself damaged goods. I was still good, I just had some damage. And he came in, and whatever he saw is what he saw. But I don't know how anybody would have thought what I had to offer was attractive, but he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And so one of the things that I believed, and I just held fast, was that God was going to give me back double recompense for my former troubles. And I called it beauty for ashes, because that's what it's called in the Bible. And so God brought me my husband. That is exactly what I call him. I call him beauty. That's my nickname, because God gave me beauty for my ashes with my husband. And he unconditionally loves me for who I am. Even sometimes when I might not necessarily be cute, he thinks it's cute. Like, I don't even understand how he thinks I'm cute when I'm not cute. Sometimes he just thinks it's adorable. Like, that's just Dana. But part of what happened in there and finding a voice and really getting back my voice was just because you get divorced, he still had access to my children.
Right.
And then I started seeing the abuse happen to my kids. And on one of the visitations, he told my daughter, who at the time wanted to make the choice to do school at home, he told her if she wasn't fat, she'd have friends. So I saw the mind control and the abuse starting on her. And that was it for me, on a whole nother level of rising up and fighting for my daughter to have the free choice of visitation, and to never let him have access to her unless she chose to have access. Everybody might believe a little bit differently, but I believe children should have a choice. Parents can manipulate situations for sure, but I wanted my children to have a voice and a choice. And so I made a decision to have a conversation with him. And I wouldn't talk to him. I wouldn't have a conversation without him unless there was a mediator involved. And through all of it, at the end of the day, even to this day, sometimes he'll reach out. He just wants the connection with me. It's very unhealthy. It's kind of sick, and I won't have anything to do with him. But for my daughter and for my children, I made a phone call. And this was probably 9 years ago. And I played to his ego. And I just said, I know that things can be hard. I know we're in agreement that we want what's best for the children. And I know that you're in a financially really tough place, because he tried for years to get out of child support. Destitute, gonna be homeless, blah, blah, blah. And I said, so I'd like to try to see if we can come to an agreement. And so I removed all of his obligation for child support forever, if he would agree to allow the children the free choice of visitation. And I changed the parenting plan. I paid for it all and I handed it to him on a silver platter. And I said, nothing changes. They just have the choice. And you no longer have to pay me a dime. And he took it. And from that day forward, my children have had the choice and the voice to make the decision for visitation. And it protected them. But we went through some really dark seasons of my daughter having to walk through all of the abuse that she went through because of the things that he said and did to her. She is a completely different person today, but if I could just convey one thing to any parent out there who's in an abusive situation, fight for your children. You do not have to conform to what the courts say or what the courts deem or what is, and they're going to tell you to split 50-50 a summer or to do every other week. If you've got a great co-parenting relationship, that probably works. But if you're in a spot where it's not healthy for your children, fight for your children because they don't have a voice. You are their voice. You're their advocate.
Yep.
That's why there are kids. We need to stand up and help them have a voice.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Absolutely. I love it. So there, you know, I connected with Dana for a short amount of time before, and then I said, wait, don't tell me your story. Don't tell me anything. Let's pause this and let's just let's just go and record. And then it took a little bit and then here we are. But I knew when I first met you, Dana, that I was like, this woman has a story that like is good to hear on here because my passion is to raise decent humans. Like that is my goal. That has always been my thing with wanting to raise my kids differently and help them be good people. And my thing is wanting to find leaders that really focus on the future of, I call them futurepreneurs because I believe that's just where our whole world is going. So hearing your passion for really wanting to be an advocate for your kids on an even higher level, I think that that's just such a beautiful thing. And I love your messaging. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. And I would love for you to share, where is the best place for the viewers to connect with you?
That's a great question. I'm building out my website, so I would say Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. Send me a private message to connect. I would love to connect. Absolutely would love to connect if my story has resonated, if somebody just needs a sounding board. I mean, I just believe that community needs other people who've gone through it to even just someone they can, and this is the other part I will say, not everybody really truly wants a transformational change because it's hard. It is so.
There's work that goes with that.
It's work that goes with it. And sometimes it's easier just to not fight. There were several times I just wanted to give up or give in and just, they compromise, right? Just compromise, just take the deal, just take the negotiation, just compromise because it's exhausting and you will get tired in the process. But not to do it because it isn't easier. It might be easier for a second, but in the long run, it's not easier. So connect with me on Facebook, I would say is the best way. And my information is all public.
Yes. Well, what is your last name? Since you can't see your last name on here, do you want to spell out your last name?
Yep, absolutely. So it's I go Dana, D-A-Y-N-A, middle, which is really my maiden last name is Crane. So Dana Crane. And my last name is Monardez. So it's Monardez.
You did it. Yay.
I know I don't say my last name very well very often, but sometimes I can spit it out right.
I love it. It's so great. Seriously, this has been amazing. So much emotion, heart that is behind you sharing your story with us. And I really appreciate your time and vulnerability, and the willingness to want to share this with other parents that can really use someone to be a light for them and just be a sounding board, like you said. So anyone that this has resonated with you, especially if you've watched this to the end, like reach out to Dana, have a conversation, and remember to love yourself and live fearlessly. And thanks for watching. And Dana, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me on.
You're welcome.